Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 444, The Stillness of Oakhaven, Part 2, Advanced. David scrambled backwards, chisel clutched uselessly in his hand, the sketchbook pages fluttering to the floor around his feet. The soft footstep became a slow, deliberate tread on the old wooden stairs. He didn't need to see who it was. The oppressive aura radiating downwards confirmed it. Mrs. Barlow appeared at the turning of the staircase, silhouetted against the dim landing light. She held no weapon, her hands clasped calmly before her. Her expression was unchanged, stern, impassive, yet somehow heavier now, freighted with a terrible certainty. "You shouldn't have disturbed things, Mr. Davies," she said, her voice the same flat tone as before, yet carrying an undeniable weight in the unnatural quiet. "Mr. Ashton learned that some things are best left buried." "What did you do to him?" David whispered, his voice hoarse. He backed away further, bumping against the sturdy oak table where his laptop lay open, his unfinished novel mocking him with its title page, Sanctuary. "Mr. Ashton became agitated," Mrs. Barlow continued, descending another step. "He didn't appreciate the quiet. He started making noise, asking questions, drawing, attention." She glanced meaningfully at the scattered sketchbook pages. "Oakhaven doesn't like attention, Mr. Davies. It requires stillness, contribution." "Contribution? What contribution?" David felt cold dread pooling in his stomach. The tapping, Ashton testing the walls or inside them. "Silence," she stated simply. "An absence of disruption, a willingness to blend in, to become part of the piece." Her eyes, dark and unreadable, flickered towards the walls of the cottage. "He wouldn't contribute. He tried to shout, to break the quiet." David suddenly understood. The villagers weren't just passively accepting the silence. They were its curators, its guardians. They enforced it. The moving objects, the furtive glances, the tapping. It wasn't paranoia. It was the house, the village, settling around him, testing him, waiting for him to accept the quiet or be silenced like Ashton. "He's still here, isn't he?" David breathed, looking wildly around the room at the solid walls. "The tapping, that was him." Mrs. Barlow offered the faintest hint of a nod. "He contributes now, in his own way. A small sound, absorbed by the greater quiet. A warning, perhaps, to those who might listen too closely." Panic surged through David. He wasn't just trapped in a village. He was trapped in a house that might literally contain its previous, terrified owner. He looked towards the front door, calculating the distance. As if reading his mind, Mrs. Barlow descended the final steps. "There's nowhere to go, Mr. Davies. The valley is quiet. Everyone agrees. Everyone contributes." He saw movement outside the window facing the lane. Shadows detaching themselves from deeper shadows. Figures standing motionless in the twilight, watching his cottage. Mrs. Henderson from the shop. Others he recognized. Their faces were indistinct, but their collective gaze felt like a physical weight. They weren't coming to help. They were the backstop, the guarantors of Oakhaven's stillness. Desperation clawed at him. He couldn't end up like Ashton, a frantic tapping fading into the suffocating silence. He had to break it. He had to make noise. He lunged not for the door, but for the heavy oak table. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, he shoved it sideways. It scraped hideously across the floorboards, a raw, tearing sound that violated the profound quiet. Then he grabbed his metal laptop, raising it high. "No!" he roared, the sound unnaturally loud, echoing in the confined space. He brought the laptop down, smashing it onto the stone hearth. Metal buckled, plastic splintered, circuits popped. It was a cacophony, an assault on the stillness. Mrs. Barlow winced, her impressive mass cracking for a fraction of a second. Outside, the silent figures stirred, moving closer to the cottage windows, their forms becoming clearer. "You can't stop it," David yelled, grabbing a fallen chair and hurling it against the wall. Plaster cracked. "You hear that? It's called life!" He kicked over a box of books, sending them spilling across the floor. He was shouting nonsense now, anything fueled by pure terror and defiance. The reaction was not what he expected. There was no immediate rush, no physical attack from Mrs. Barlow. Instead, the silence seemed to retaliate. It pressed in, thicker than before, making his ears pop. The air grew heavy, difficult to breathe. The shadows in the corners of the room deepened, coalescing. He felt an immense pressure building, not just outside, but inside the very walls of the Hollies. Mrs. Barlow stood firm, her hands still clasped, watching him with something akin to pity. "The quiet always returns, Mr. Davies. It absorbs the disturbance. It always has." David felt his defiant rage faltering, replaced by an encroaching exhaustion, a profound weariness. The silence was leeching his energy, his will. He could still hear a faint rhythmic tapping, seemingly closer now, more insistent, beneath the floorboards. Tap, tap, tap. "Join us." Tap, tap. Quiet. He saw the villagers' faces pressed against the glass now, their eyes reflecting the dim interior light. Hollow, patient, expectant. They weren't menacing, they were simply waiting for the inevitable conclusion, for the noise to fade, for the stillness to reclaim its own. He sank to his knees amidst the wreckage he'd created, the broken laptop, the scattered books, the overturned furniture. His breathing was ragged. The silence washed over him, soothing and terrifying all at once. It promised an end to struggle, an end to fear, an end to everything. It was the peace he'd sought, twisted into a monstrous parody. He looked at Ashton's sketchbook, open on the floor to a drawing of the bricked-up cavity. He understood now. It wasn't just a hiding place for the book. It was a representation, a place where things that disturbed the quiet were sealed away, contained, their faint echoes contributing to the overall stillness. His final burst of defiance had achieved nothing but sealing his own fate. He had disturbed the peace. He had refused to contribute silence. Now Oakhaven would ensure he contributed in the only way left. Mrs. Barlow took a step towards him, her shadow falling over him. He didn't have the strength left to resist. Outside, the watching figures remained perfectly still. The last thing David heard before the profound silence claimed him utterly was the soft rhythmic sound from within the walls, a little louder now, almost welcoming. Tap, tap, tap. Months later, a new for sale sign stood outside the Hollies. The online listing showed idyllic photos of a charming stone cottage nestled deep in the tranquil Oakhaven Valley. Ivy crept romantically over the weathered walls, the garden neatened, showing its hidden beauty. The description effused about the unparalleled peace and quiet, the perfect writer's retreat. Inside, the cottage was clean, tidy, expectant. The damaged plaster on the wall had been expertly repaired, indistinguishable from the rest. Near the base of that same wall, low to the ground, the brickwork looked solid, undisturbed, perhaps just a fraction newer than the stones around it. In the profound, heavy stillness of Oakhaven, The only sound, if one listened very, very closely, was a faint, intermittent tapping, barely audible, emanating from somewhere deep within the cottage walls. A small sound, easily absorbed by the greater quiet. Vocabulary notes. Deliberate, adjective, definition, done consciously and intentionally, careful and unhurried. Example, the soft footstep became a slow, deliberate tread on the old wooden stairs. Analysis. This word emphasizes that the footsteps are not accidental or rushed. They are measured and purposeful, adding to the tension and suggesting the person approaching is calm and in control, which is unsettling for David. Similar words: intentional, calculated, measured, purposeful, conscious, unhurried, steady. Impassive, adjective, definition, not feeling or showing emotion, expressionless. Example, she held no weapon, her hands clasped calmly before her. Her expression was unchanged, stern, impassive, yet somehow heavier now. Analysis. Mrs. Barlow's impassive face makes her intentions unreadable and therefore more frightening. Her lack of visible emotion in such a tense situation suggests coldness, certainty, or perhaps that she sees this confrontation as routine or inevitable. Similar words: expressionless, emotionless, blank, inscrutable, deadpan, stoic, unemotional. Cacophony, noun, definition, a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds, loud, confusing, disagreeable noise. Example, metal buckled, plastic splintered, circuits popped. It was a cacophony, an assault on the stillness. Analysis. This word highlights the extreme contrast between the usual silence of Oakhaven and the violent noise David creates. It emphasizes his desperate act of rebellion against the oppressive quiet. Similar words: din, racket, discord, clamour, uproar, dissonance, noise. Violated, verb, past tense. Definition. In this context, broke or failed to comply with a rule or standard, treated something respected or sacred with disrespect, disturbed or intruded upon. Example, it scraped hideously across the floorboards, a raw, tearing sound that violated the profound quiet. Analysis. This suggests the quiet isn't just an absence of sound, but something held sacred or enforced in Oakhaven. David's noise isn't just loud, it's an act of transgression against the village's fundamental nature. Similar words: breached, transgressed, infringed, desecrated, profaned, disturbed, disrupted, broke, a rule. Retaliate, verb, definition, to make an attack or assault in return for a similar attack, respond to an action with a counteraction, often aggressively. Example, instead the silence seemed to retaliate. It pressed in, thicker than before. Analysis. Personifying the silence gives it agency and menace. It's not just passively present, it actively fights back against David's disruption, suggesting a conscious or supernatural force upholding the quiet. Similar words: respond, react, counterattack, strike back, hit back, reciprocate negatively. Encroaching, adjective, present participle. Definition: advancing gradually beyond usual or acceptable limits, intruding, often slowly and stealthily. Example, instead he felt an encroaching exhaustion, a profound weariness. Analysis. This describes how the exhaustion isn't sudden but creeps up on David, suggesting the silence is subtly but effectively overpowering his resistance, like an incoming tide. Similar words: intruding, invading, infringing, advancing, creeping in, trespassing, figuratively. Leeching, verb, present participle. Definition: draining away strength, energy, resources or vitality, often slowly and persistently, like a medicinal leech drawing blood. Example: the silence was leeching his energy, his will. Analysis: this powerful verb conveys the parasitic nature of the silence. It doesn't just exist, it actively drains David's strength and determination, weakening him from the inside out. Similar words: draining, sapping, depleting, bleeding, figuratively, extracting, exhausting. Faltering, verb, present participle. Definition: starting to lose strength, momentum or certainty, wavering or hesitating. Example: David felt his defiant rage faltering, replaced by an encroaching exhaustion. Analysis: this marks the turning point where David's resistance begins to fail under the immense pressure of the silence and the villagers' vigilance. His fight is weakening. Similar words: wavering, hesitating, weakening, stumbling, declining, flagging, losing ground. Coalescing, verb, present participle. Definition: coming together and forming one mass or whole, merging or combining. Example: the shadows in the corners of the room deepened, coalescing. Analysis: this makes the shadows seem active and menacing, gathering strength or perhaps even forming shapes. It adds to the supernatural or psychological horror, suggesting that darkness itself is becoming tangible. Similar words: merging, uniting, combining, fusing, blending, consolidating, gathering. Story written by Gemini AI. Image created by Grok 3 AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
Hello, this is Steve. If you enjoyed the story, please would you take the time to leave a meaningful comment and click on the like icon. If you want to know when the next story has been uploaded, please click on the notify bell icon to be notified. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your English learning friends so they can benefit too. Thank you.